Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to SKTV. Welcome to today's edition. We'd like to welcome each and every one of you um, as you join us today. As you can see, the topic we would like to have a conversation here about the risk and danger of 2023's presidential election in Liberia. Um, we'll also be talking a little bit here from a neighboring standpoint. In West Africa, Nigeria is having her election today. Um, there seems to be lots of momentum and enthusiasm from the young people and the young generation with one of the candidates that has emerged as one of the favorites. We will be talking about all of that today. We will also be talking about the danger, the risk of what's going on in the country just before the 2023 election. Um, please share the show. Please share the show as you join us this morning, this afternoon. Like I said, we have a lot to talk about. There are a lot of risk and danger that are affiliated with the elections coming up 2023. And we would explain to you what we mean by that, risk and danger. Share the show as you join us, please. We will have at some point someone or some people join us to have this conversation. But let's share the show in the meantime. Please, let's share the show. We have a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about, lots of our engagements here today, so that we can let you know as to where we are. Share the show. Very, very sad times in our country. Very, 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 very sad time in our country. But let's share the show, please, guys. Very sad times in our country with the death of or the stabbing killing allegedly of by armed robber of former Justice Minister, former Senator Gloria Musu Scott, who happened to be one of the opposition members. Yesterday, I think the day before, I wrote a post that got lots of people attention, and some wrote me in my inbox, interestingly, and said to me, "Oh, no, you need to take the post down. You need to take the post down. It appears insensitive, and you need to take the post down. You need to do this. You need to do that." And I told him, I said, "No, I'm not taking the post down." And I wasn't going to take the post down. I will not take the post down. That's never going to happen. And the reason for that is the posting in itself is very clear. The posting itself is very clear. If you choose to interpret it the way you want to interpret it, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You have rights to your interpretation. But the posting is very clear. And some people would agree, others would disagree. That's exactly what the interactions is all about. But I just ask you to be respectful. The post is very clear. At some point, some people said, I didn't know I was writing. I should have written it this way. I should have written it that way. Granted, that is your view, and I respect that. But I wrote what I wanted to write. But like I said, let's share the show. I'd like for us to please share the show so that we can get into the conversation here. There are a lot of things we have to talk about today, but let's share the show, guys. Let's share the show. We will also remind you today of the Cash App. Tomorrow, we do have as guest Mr. Alexander Cummings, who's the CPP, we can say in Liberia, the CPP B-man, and also the ANC B-man. Let me put it the real Liberian way. CPPB, man. And ANCB, man. So he'll be here tomorrow in a sit-down / interview, however you want to term it as. We're going to be having a conversation with Mr. Cummings. And we're going to ask some questions. We'll hope and pray that you'll join us as well in that exercise tomorrow or that venture tomorrow. But let's share the show, please. Let me get into this here really quick. We get into other news and we get into some serious activities here. We have a lot to discuss, like I said, a lot to talk about this afternoon. Again, our sympathy goes out to the family of the deceased. These are some of the things that we are going to talk about. We're going to dive in. We're going to look at it from different angles, different segments, where we are as a nation and what's really going on. We're going to go back into some realities checks, into some facts, and we will, very troubling. I'm being told that the elections in Nigeria it's very tight. Let me put it that way. It's not easy. Let me say it that way. The elections in Nigeria are not easy. Hey, Lily T, what's up? Dode Davis, what's up? Saleh Ali, what's up? Pedro, what's up? Cruz. Okay, you're watching from Monrovia. All right, tell the people in Monrovia, say hi. We will be seeing them soon. Tell the people in Monrovia, say hi. Yeah, so as you write, Agnes Barkley, as you write, we'll know that you are here. And then we'll be able to greet you. We haven't even gotten to the greetings yet. We want to get to other news really, really quick. In terms of one of the leading contenders in a race in Nigeria. You know, Sekou were making fun out of me because they eliminated us from the Europa League on Thursday, Barcelona. You know, we are supporters. You know, we support Barcelona in good times, in bad times, in difficult times. We still support Barcelona. You know, we still support Barcelona because that's the team we signed up to support. We still support them. Barcelona has been one of the biggest and the best teams. So we still support them. Long story short, we got flogged by Manchester United. And I will not shy away from it. I will admit to it that we should have won. We should have won that game, but unfortunately, we did not win. So we don't expect any trophy from Europe this year. Nothing from Europe. Nothing, absolutely nothing from Europe. There will be nothing coming from Europe. They whip us in Champions League, they whip us in the Europa League. So that means right now, it's safe to say that Barcelona are government boom. Let me put it that way. Barcelona are government boom. We take it in good strides and we'll move on. Give me a second here. Let me play this music really quick. Just this quick break.
Amanda, Awetu, Maipuye, Liberia, Maipuye, Jovia, Double, Striga, Aha, y'all move on the road, the punch giant ready to take over.
Like
Y'all move on the road, be Papa come here again. Y'all move on the road, Papa Georgie come here again. Y'all move on the road, Mama Joe come here again. Move on the road, see Vision come here again. Now the whole country giant coming soon.
I beg you, yeah. We play our music today, but I will play some kind of video for you really quick. I will play some kind of video before we get on in the musical break. Today, we don't intend to play any song as to get the show started. We don't. We'll play a video for you, and I want you to listen to that video. It's from a Liberian who was most recently threatened. As we get into the commercial break here before we share the show, I'll play that music for you, that video for you, and I would like for you to see where we are headed based on the topic. There's a lot at stake. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's welcome our friends and our brothers from the CDC. Yeah, Edward Kemu is a Real Madrid pay our day, my man. Real Madrid, I ain't even understand Real Madrid said, I ain't even understand that said, brother. But anyway, God there. We'll be back next season. If everything goes well, we'll be back. From the look of things, I can tell you we're in a situation we can handle. I'm a Barcelona fan, but me, I'm not a blind supporter or a blind loyalist. We're in a situation we can handle. This season, we're disgraced, we're flogged, and it doesn't look too good for us. I'm not going to leave you on any injury or anybody injured or, the team not informed. No. We take it. We were flogged. We got eliminated from the Champions League. That's not a hidden secret. We got eliminated from the Champions League. That is not a hidden secret. We got eliminated from the Champions League. Very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. I'm trying to pull up this video that we're supposed to be watching here. Please share the show, guys. Yeah, we got Dayware Trophy, mama. It's so unfortunate. I won't lie to you. We in a situation we can handle this season. Nobody not allowed to Barcelona fan. We in a situation we can handle. And that small flogging we get in. The manager flogging on back to back. Imagine Manchester United all beating on. God there. Yeah, let's share the show, guys. Please, let's share the show. Let's share the show, please. Let's share the show, please. We have a lot to talk about today. So let's share the show. I am asking you to please share the show. Help us share the show as we will be discussing. But I want to, like I said, the Nigerian elections. The Nigerian election. Okay. I need to play this music quick because somebody is supposed to be giving us the direct information from there has reached out. Let me call this person really quick. Let's take a quick musical break.
Amanda, Maipuye, Liberia, Maipuye,
Trigger.
Aha, y'all move on the road, the punch giant ready to take
You
over.
will like it.
Y'all move on the road, beat Papa come here again. Y'all move on the road, Papa Georgie come here again. Y'all move on the road, Mama Joe come here again. Move on the road, see Tisha come here again. Now the whole country giant come here so better move on the road. I say you better move your road. You deserve to get away. Ruling back to get away. We come here again. Move on the road, CTC come here again. Yeah, move on the road, Joe, we are coming again. Move on the road, Mama Joe, we come here again. Up in the road, CTC come here again. Now the whole country giant coming so. Better move on the road. Say you better move your road. Take it away. Better get away. We come here again. We force the winning scheme. We come here again. Coalition for democratic change. Now the whole country champion they coming so. You better move on the road. I say you better move your road. You big Paris and get away. Better get away. Yen say I'm on Bo, I say I come at Deble, go corridor. Yen say I'm on.
Okay, sorry, we had to speak with someone who would have given us some information. Like I said, we were waiting for this update on the show on what's going on in Nigeria. And apparently the elections is going well as expected. We saw in recent days, we saw the momentum from the young people and how they've claimed that they wanted to take their country back. And so there has been this huge wave of young people being involved in the elections. But not only that, Peter Obi, who's a businessman / turned politician, seemed to be giving the run for the monies to the typical politicians. It seemed as though the Nigerian people want to change the trajectory of the country, taking it from the typical politicians, from the older folks, and bringing in a young, vibrant, business-minded president that would provide them with opportunity and so forth. So this is quite interesting that Nigeria, who's I would say has the largest population in Africa, considered as Africa's the leader for Africa to some extent based on in numerical value and other things that they've achieved as a country, would be having this huge shift from the normal politics and politician. They're shifting towards this businessman, Peter Obi, the euphoria, the momentum. And Peter Obi seemed to be very popular, let me use the word, with the people because they want this change. This reminds me of 2017 when the Liberian people wanted change in President George Weah. And this has nothing to do with Peter Obi and President George Weah in comparison or in contrast, but just how the people wanted President George Weah at the time. But Peter Obi, on the contrary, Peter Obi has proven to be very successful in his business ventures, highly respected in the world amongst his peers, by other world leaders. And so this is very interesting. This is very, 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 very interesting that the Nigerian people are taking a total different trajectory. The same thing we saw in Guinea a year or two ago when a coup happened, in as much that I'm not in support of any coup, but they were removing an older regime and bringing in, ushering in a newer regime. And when I speak to people from Guinea, friends and family from Guinea, who would tell me that, the people of Guinea are doing very, very well with this new leader, in as much that they're considering his term being over so that they can do something different with their lives. It's very fascinating that Africa seemed to be changing trajectory in terms of of uh, of elections. You know who they want to vote in and whatever not. This is quite interesting, and I'm very, I don't know, I don't want to say I'm shocked, but I think it's a good thing for the politics of Liberia, Africa, that we can have such a tremendous change and everything else. But I want to get to the video that I told you about. That video will play for a few minutes before we get into the conversation here for today. I want you to read the headlines. We will talk about a lot of things. We'll briefly touch on the budget. We'll briefly touch on the census report that came out. There are a lot of things that seem to be, the stage is already set for chaos as we see in our eyes. And so we're going to venture into some of these conversations to see what the Liberians will say. We have the lines open. I'd also, just before we get into playing the video here, I want to attach the Cash app. Last time, some people reached out to me and say, why you not put a Cash app or making plan with me? So let me put a Cash app number here. Please feel free to contribute. Like I said, Mr. Cummings will be our guest tomorrow. He will be our guest tomorrow. So I'll put a Cash app number here. At some point, I will also put the at some point I will also bring in the numbers for us to call in. But we do have a guest that will be joining me. Let's share the show, guys. While you are coming on, let's share the show. Now, just before I play this video, before I bring this video up, that's the Cash app number on there. Anything you put on there would be appreciated by SKTV. Just before I bring this video up, let me give you all quick background information. Most of you have seen, have read, have heard about the postings of the alleged killer, or the guy who was alleged involved with the incidents with the armed robbery. Councillor Jerome Verdia made it clear as to who this person was. So, long story short, basically he was mentioned, and one of the journalists or someone in Liberia mentioned him on their page, and shockingly, he went on to threaten the gentleman. But this video is courtesy to OKFM, who had an interview with the gentleman who was involved, who received a threat from the alleged armed robber who was allegedly used by Jefferson Koji. So let's hear from him. Let's hear from him for the next few minutes here as we share the show. Give me a second. Okay, give me a second here. Let me see. Okay. Let me share this with you. This is the young man. Let's play a few of it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to say good afternoon to many viewers and to all Liberians. My name is Ayub Duple, as you know rightly. And I want to say welcome to to the press for bringing this live on this Saturday. So today I intend to address the public um, mostly about a trending issue surrounding my life. Um, you all know in Liberia today, we've been experiencing series of attacks on individuals. People have been killed, some had been wounded, and some had been kidnapped by unknown men. One of the most recent incident is the incident of the former Chief Justice, Councillor Gloria Mususka, whose resident was attacked by unknown men, and something that led to the death of one of her daughters. I want to firstly condemn that act against the former Chief Justice, and call on the necessary security authority to carry on a swift investigation and, of course, an independent investigation. And I also like to call on the international community to step in, as this issue is alarming and has serious threats on the life of many Liberians who are vulnerable today. If these things can happen to officials of government and former officials of government, it is much more easier to happen to ordinary citizens like us. So today, as you all know, I've been raising alarm over a particular issue surrounding my life, and this issue has been on the media for like 2 days. Um, I raised an issue recently, also surrounding the same incident that occurred at the home of the former Chief Justice. And my issue raised was in context, and it was not intended to target a particular individual because of hate. It was not based on political interests because, one for all, I'm not a member of any political party, and I do not have interest in any political office at the moment. And when I raised this issue, quoting uh, Councillor Jerome Verdio, who appeared on the Spoon TV, on Spoon Talk, and made series of allegations against the city mayor of Monrovia, Jefferson Koji, and at the same time linking one of his staff by the name of Valley Tile. And the assertion made by Councillor Verdio on the Spoon Talk, he mentioned that the city mayor Jefferson Koji is the brain beyond the entire incident that occurred at the home of the former Chief Justice. When he made this allegation, he went as far as saying that the mayor allegedly sent Valley Tiller to carry on the act at the home of the former Chief Justice. When I took this issue on my social media page, making the same quotation, and then after the post on Facebook, I received a text message from an individual by the name Valley Tiller on Facebook on my messenger page. And in the messenger message he sent to me, I will read this so that the public can hear it and know exactly um, what this guy sent to me. So in the text message, he said, "Hey, are you Brooklyn or whatever you call yourself? I saw this nonsense you posted about me targeting or tagging my photo as well. I never intend to react to it, but I have to because it is on the media. But what I can say to you is that if you love your life, you better stay out of this. My link with the process does not in any way concern you, and it has no impact on you as well. I'm warning you, the next time you try this, I will make sure you taste the pain of what others have fed from me before. Be careful and govern yourself, as I don't know you from anywhere. Just be yourself and get out of this process. So this is the text message I received from the name Bali Tile on my messenger page. When I saw this message, I got terrified, I got afraid, and I couldn't hold myself. In my life, since I've been in the media, I've never received a threatening message as compared to what this particular individual sent to me. So, based on the fear, I decided to block him because I never wanted to be bothered with him. And I took it to the social media, I posted, and after all, I started receiving series of calls. But what I'm saying is that I'm not overlooking the text message, and I don't think this should be a joke. The name Valitile, as everyone have mentioned, is a dangerous name, as I have been told. I'm told that this individual by the name Valitile once worked with Ulimo, one of the warring factions that participated in the war in Liberia. He was a member of the ATU, and he also worked, as I'm told, he worked at the Monrovia City Corporation as the director for operation. This is a serious matter. It involved my life. I'm not a government official. I do not have any security. My security is the security provided by the government to protect every Liberian. I placed a phone call yesterday to the spokesperson of the Liberia National Police to explain the situation to him. He listened very well, and he said to me that the matter should be reported to the headquarters of the Liberia National Police. And this is what we are working on. I'm calling on the international community, embassies around Liberia to intervene. This is not just about me. It could be any other Liberian. It could be any other person threatened by another individual and nothing comes out of it. We all know the Councillor Gloria Mususka, alarmed over an attack on her life and her property for over 2 weeks, and nothing was done about it until it resulted to what happened to her daughter. This shows the inability of the security sector of our country to protect the life of Liberians. I'm calling on the international community to intervene in this matter because we do not have the necessary security to protect our life. We do not have the sincere securities to protect our life. If an individual who works at the Monrovia City Corporation will begin to threaten people's life carrying firearm, it's scary. It is alarming, and it needs the intervention of every individual. It needs our intervention. So what I can say to the public is that my life is threatened. I'm not staying where I used to stay because of the threat, and I decided to leave and to protect myself because I know the security apparatus cannot do that for us. You call them to secure you, to guard you, it is not possible because they too complain of logistics and other things, which I think government needs to work on. So they should claim the attention of the Liberian population. They should claim the attention of our international community that voluntarily threaten my life, and should anything happen to me, I'm calling on you the international partners, that Valley Tiller is responsible for anything that will happen to my life. Thank you very much.
Vanity is responsible for anything that happens to my life. Uh, you heard it from himself. Again, courtesy of OKFM, who did the interview in Liberia with the gentleman involved. I'd like to bring in Duke really quick, who will be our guest. We have some things to talk about. Um, and hopefully we can hear his side of the story and contribution to the conversation here today. Good afternoon, my man. What's going on, Duke?
What's up, Steve? How's it going on, my brother?
My man, yeah, staying out of trouble. What is going on?
We all are, man. I've been trying a little bit, so it's always great, man, to not only be on here, man, for us to be able to join and exchange ideas on trending issues.
Yeah, wonderful. We've always been on different platforms in groups. We've never really met on SKTV on a one-on-one sit down like this.
Yeah.
Some people might not know who you are. So who is Duke? They've heard about you. They've read some of the things you've written. Some of them have been used, by other political actors to say, "Oh, that's president like this, that president." Well, who is Duke?
Thanks, Steve. Listening, with all that you see on social media from me, and I am really this passionate guy who's focused on, standing for the truth. I really believe that when it comes to Liberia, and changing the mindset of our people, all of us collectively, right, should bring our diversity to to that process, and be able to effectuate change. So, social media is just one aspect, but outside of social media, I'm a down to earth person. I'm always willing to listening, to be able to help people in whatever way possible. But I'm just passionate, and sometimes looking to push a point across and making sure that people do see, especially young people, that you could take a stance on the issues, right, and don't have to change the way that you believe in certain things because society wants you to confine to that. And that's just my motto. I just stand by what I preach, what I say, and I want to state that way with us, society telling me or dictating how I can engage those issues.
Okay, without society telling how you can detect the issues. Well, there's been lots of issues here and there. Let's start off with. I'm not sure if you've been following the Nigerian politics or the Nigerian election.
Yeah.
It seems more as this guy Peter Obi. Someone was having a conversation with me sometimes yesterday, and the person said to me, "Well, the person is not a member of the ANC or the CPP or whatever it is."
Mm-hmm.
But the person said to me, I wish the Liberian people, and this is not a Liberian, let me put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put it in that context. This is not a Liberian. Let me be clear about this. The person said to me, I hope the Liberian people would, change their mindset and do what the Nigerian people are doing. Like they want to change the country, so they're not electing the typical politicians and so forth. Rather, they're bringing in a business guy, who's not part of their normal politics. They're tired with the politicians that have lied to them, that have kept them in power. They made promises and never kept them. So what do you say? What do you say to Peter Obi in contrast to Liberia? What do you say?
Well, Steve, if you really pay attention to global politics, there's this trend now wherein, especially the conscious aspect of society, young people, what they're understanding now is that they too can, be part of change in the various societies, right? And so they're thinking different in terms of leadership. And for the first time in many, many years, what we're saying now, people want a government or the person who leads them to be a true representation of what their beliefs are. And I think that's what you see with Nigeria. What you see happening, a lot of those young, talented Nigerians, they're coming to the West, they're coming to the United States, they're engaging the society to see how they've been able to live a better life here and how the structure is. It's not all perfect, but they see how, an environment that's being led by somebody who understands how to draft the narrative can create this kind of open pot, right? This big pot for everybody else. And I think what they want is that piece of the pie. wherein that African politics and leadership in Africa cannot always be the same way, right? Wherein there's one person and one group of people who are just there for themselves. So that's how I see. And in the case of Liberia, I really hope that we've actually reached that particular destination, wherein we start to understand now that look, for a long time we've actually given leadership to people who really didn't care about us. We've actually traded our votes for people who are only there for themselves. What sense would it make now, right, for us
Mhm.
to be able to go against what we're used to and be able to embrace something that's actually leading this kind of global surge in progress, in leadership, in change, and all of that stuff. So I think it's a beautiful thing to see, right? Wherein somebody who is really not the kind of typical person that you see in leadership when it comes to Africa, making this huge splash and this surge across, that part. One of the most important countries in Africa as well. And hopefully, this is a lesson that we can take moving into the October general elections in Liberia.
And it's quite fascinating that you say the issue of transition that we are going through.
Yeah.
It's quite fascinating that you would say that because yes, there's transition going out throughout the world.
Yeah.
And some of these transitions might not necessarily be what we're used to. They
Mhm.
might not be the people that we like. But like you said earlier, people want to see themselves in their leader, not necessarily from the same tribe, not necessarily from the same county, from the same religion,
Yeah.
but people coming from colleges, they want to get a job. They want to, they want people who would be able to have a proven track record. And Peter will be, I'm not interested in Nigerian politics that much, but we have to be because they're neighbors. We're all in the West.
Mhm.
They're laying their ground now that we can all stand on to say this is what we can do for the next generation.
Yeah.
This is how we lay the trajectory. People who had proven track record to do something, let's give them the opportunity to lead our country, not necessarily traditional politicians,
Yeah.
because the traditional politicians have not yielded the results we've wanted.
Yeah.
And this is troubling. This is why we have everything we have today. And where we are as a nation, we are stuck. We have not put people with proven track record
Yeah.
that can do or make the difference. I'm not sure what your thoughts are in terms of, because we'll move from Nigeria, but in terms of leaving the typical politicians
Mhm.
and gravitating towards people with proven track record. Do you think this should just be restricted to the young people, or should the older people, the older folks, the older generation get on board as well and see the need for this? And how do they benefit from this?
And Steve, that's a great question. And I think I've said a long time ago that this particular issue, right, it fits into the thought processes of both the younger generation and the older generation. So let me start with the older generation. I think that a lot of our older people now are moving into that phase wherein they're going into the retirement years, right? Some of
Mhm.
them are actually at the tail end of the life cycle. So the question then becomes, with all that you've seen in this country, what type of Liberia do you want to leave behind for your children? Because your kids are your legacy, right? What
Mhm.
kind of Liberia? Some of them will be the first to tell you that, man, during the 60s and possibly the 70s and during those heydays of Liberia, those were when things were really, going good in the country. But since then, we've lost that kind of progress in Liberia. So the thought process for the older generation is that, look, you have seen over the past decades and even more that Liberia hasn't been the kind of country that you once knew it to be. Do you leave this country or your kids in the hands of people or this pattern of dishonesty and a broken society, right? Or do you finally say, you know what, I've given all over the past couple of years and I haven't gotten it right? How do I sit back now and think, how different should my approach be going forward so that when I leave my children behind, it would be a society that's actually better for them, right? And that could possibly lead on to a legacy for me as well. So I think that's how the older generation should, focus on it. For the younger generation, though, they have to sit now and think for it. Look around you. A lot of young people in Liberia, they're influenced by Western music. You see people from the West to see those things start going on. They want to live that. You see Liberia now, The young people are on TikTok, right? They're on TikTok. They're seeing the global trends. They're participating in those things. So it tells me that they crave something different. They want to be happy. They want to be part of globalization. They want to be part of a society that gives them a chance to be and feel like the rest of the people there. So then the top process now is, how can we get that type of Liberia, right, that we see from the outside? Well, let's go back to everything that's happened up to this point. We have consistently voted the same way based upon popularity, electing people into office who don't bring any kind of difference when it comes to leadership in that country, right? And so if we have to do things different, that means we have to stray from what we've done before consistently in the past to be able to give us something different. One more example, Steve, and I'll let you come in. One of the things that I always say, and that hold dears to my heart because I know you experience it. If you look at during the Trump presidency ignited something in America that we've never seen in a long time. But it was something important. It told me all that I needed to know about the current generation, that the current generation in America was not going to be like the parents' generation that was pro segregation, that they understood that the new world or the globalization asset in America that they want to see included people, their friends that sat with them in schools, that played sports with them, right? That didn't have the same color of skin, but it was not going to define how to reshape their narrative. So it was about them crafting a new, right, a process for them. And so what did they do? We saw one of the most massive and the largest protests across America. Who led those protests? Young people. Young people from all over took to the street. And you know what? It ain't only in protest. They organized themselves. First-time voters or young people showed up to polling stations on the election day. They created grassroots activism groups in different communities. And there was this surge of young people at the polling station because they wanted to reject something that did not really coincide with what vision they have for the country going forward. So that's what I think the message should be to both young people and older people in Liberia.
Great. And I want to tie this conversation into the older generation because I will ask you the next question about the United States and whatever it is. But I want to tie this in with the older generation. In America, one of the things the Americans did not anticipate was we term them in the healthcare field, especially the nurses, they term them as baby boomers.
Yeah.
So baby boomers are those people who worked during the era of the wars and so forth. Eventually, they did not prepare for this shortage. So as we speak currently, there is a huge shortage of nurses all around the United States. It's huge. The need for nurses is so high. As evidenced by that, that's why nursing schools and other things were created. So in this slide, I wanted to ask you, how far are we with the stand-on case? Because I know you've been on our case. How far are we with it and all our extra stuff? What's going on?
Steve, yes, I've taken interest in that case. And, for me, and I think that, this is a teaching moment for everybody, including, again, young people, because that guy, put himself out there as somebody that should, be a voice in the way forward for Liberia and about the politics. And so what happens is that when you find young people who are into listening to radio and all of the things, right, and seeing the lavish and luxury life of individuals, we have to be careful about those kind of characters. But anyway, into the case of Steve, I have a lot of documents from the case, and I've been doing time to look at research and read different things from the case. Now, the first thing that we need to establish for people in Liberia who are living in doubt is the thing. This is not an ordinary case. It is actually one of those top tier cases that you ever see. There are scandals that happen and rock an entire nation. That particular case falls within that category, wherein that it is not something that's going to roll back. It's going to set a new standard when it comes to healthcare in America. And it's funny you talk about the shortage of nurses. I actually just did a research on that part and just looking at different states that had shortage in hiring certain positions and stuff. The nursing is right out there because of the lack of expertise and people in the field, right? And some states the low wage and other nurses going to other places with higher wages and stuff. So this creating this imbalance. So it's important. But where we are with the case is that initially, but through due process, I don't care, you can be a murderer or you can be accused of murder. Everybody goes through a due process according to the American justice system. So the worst criminal will go through the process, and that's why they give you a meal when you're being executed, right? Because it's human rights. So everybody's afforded the opportunity. As part of that process, then the accuser, meaning that, you know, the federal government in this case, presents all of his evidences to the defendant and the legal side of the defendant. So we're at that period wherein all of the evidences have been presented. The interesting part is, as you know, about 90+% of federal cases don't go to trial, meaning that those involved will either reach out for a plea bargain and stuff for sentencing to take place. But if you want to go to trial, that's up to you. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change anything. It just make it worse, because once you were convicted, you've taken the federal government through a lot of, you know, unnecessary, you know, whatever it is, and so they come down heavy. But when you agree to go to trial and the evidences are provided to you, usually you will see some kind of movement from the legal side, and those who are in the legal field can probably speak to that. But at this time, there hasn't been any contention raised for it in terms of the evidences that's been presented by the federal government, right? So that tells me that two things can happen here to Stanton. He can finally just agree, let me take a plea bargain, and start talking and confessing the same things that, you know, will aid the process of the federal government. And maybe they will say, you know what, he's showing remorse and empathy and stuff, we might just lower the sentence. Or you can go to trial, which you're going to lose anyways, and then get a hefty sentence, right, in that process as well. But either way, there is a verdict that's going to come down, whether the process go through. And with everything, have you seen the evidences presented? I think
no. I'm saying the counter evidence from Stanton's side has not been presented as of yet.
Oh no, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Yeah, no. What I was saying, have you seen some of the list of things that's actually been included in the?
Oh yes, most definitely. They're mountain, and the interesting part of this case also, Duke.
Yeah.
I'd like to infuse this.
Yeah.
It's the fact that one of his guys who they work together has flipped. So this, let's forget about the evidences that the FBI has, but we also have human being that you worked with testifying against you. So it's not just paper. It's not he said, they say. Now you got evidence of somebody else, you know. So it's you know, it's
and see, let's add to that. Let's take it back a little bit, and we bring some clarity to your listening audience. It's not just that the person you're working with is going to come and say, "Oh, this meant something." The federal government have already done hours of video recordings wherein this person willingly sat in a room with the feds and recorded everything about this case. So as part of the evidence presented are hours long of recording confession of that particular person, right? In exchange for whatever lesser sentence that they're going to receive against him. So part of the documents that were submitted are recorded evidences from Afro-Celio against Stanton Witherspoon. The undercover recordings, the emails, right? The pictures linking him to actually everything that was said, right? And people, what y'all should know, there are other instances, all right? Evidences of other behaviors and patterns in other states, right? That occurred before. So it's a slew of evidence, a lot of different things. It's an uphill battle, right? At the end of the day, I think we will see not only the beauty of the American justice system, but this could potentially be a learning, a lesson, right? For a lot of people to start vetting and taking a look at people. This case is actually bigger than the Cassell's case. May his soul rest in peace. It's actually larger than the Cassell case. And if you see, I mean, if you can go back to that case and where it was heading, you can almost tell, you know, potentially what the sentence would be like for this particular case.
But well, from a, you know, I like to say this. I'm concerned. I'm concerned a little bit about Stanton from a clinical standpoint, from a professional standpoint, not from our Liberian everyday talking standpoint. It's not normal for you to be facing such huge allegations and you are acting like it's normal. Or you're doing the same routine, the same. No, that's not how we are wired as humans. Now, normally when people are doing that, two things comes to mind. Either you are not in touch with reality because you can't come to terms with the reality that's happening, or you do have a plan that people don't know about that you could care less at this time. So you just live as if everything is normal and you are just playing shadow or covering or masking whatever is going on or how you're feeling. The reaction, the behavior of Stanton, whether publicly or privately, has not shown to be something that's remorseful or that he's even concerned about the situation that's going on. And so that's a little concerning to me. That's scary. We saw similar behavior from the late Dr. Cassell, who played off and acted like nothing was going on. Didn't even want to speak to that case or address that case. I mean, this is concerning. What do you say?
Steve, you're the mental health expert guy. And, our community is so rich with people who understand. And I'm glad you brought, that particular point up from a mental health perspective. Like you said, those are red flags. And, I remember one of the things that clicked on my mind when I think about the late Dr. Cassell, may his peace be unto his ashes. And this is in no way, going after somebody who's lost a life. Let's just get it there. There's still some level of humanity left in me or us. But we have to talk about these things because those were societal figures, right? I remember that night when he was on the FOL. And there were a lot of questions asked. And there was just his behavior, this nonchalant attitude, this confidence. And I know his people like, oh, he would get out. And we just, these people understand, the magnitude of what's going on. But that's scary because when somebody moves into that particular territory wherein they're showing that, they feel that nothing's going to go on, that tells you that the first thing that clicks to mind, what's their plan B, right? And this is where people who really care about that person need to either watch them or be careful because at the end of the day, they're at the point wherein that there's nothing to lose. I know deep down in his heart, he's reached this point wherein, look, it is done. I've gotten away for a long time, right? And now it's time to face this. But how am I facing it, right? And so I will put up this front. But it is a dark cloud. In finance, one of the most popular scandal that also rocked was the Bernie Madoff case. I think Bernie Madoff got sentenced 150 years in prison for the Ponzi scheme. Similar thing up there where it is that he started messing with people life savings and stuff, the older people and stuff. Screw a lot of people of a lot of money, right? And the Madoff part was sentenced. And the guy who was actually on the case that were Bernie Madoff too was one person all over the place, acting as if nothing went wrong. But he got a 15 years sentence. He was not even the main guy. In this case, Stanton Witherspoon is the main guy here. So there is this danger of what that person could potentially do to themselves, right? Because, it is possibly just too much or they're not going to face it and just, something. But either ways, though, at the end of the day here is that, look, we can have empathy all we want, right? What about having empathy for the lives that were impacted? What about having empathy for doing things, right, that should have not been done in the first place? You never know. People could have lost their lives. And if some of you in Liberia don't know, nursing is actually one of the most sacred profession in the United States. There are a lot of code and ethics that actually guide some of those people, and a lot of work pour into it. A lot of people make sacrifices. Young women will put their lives on hold to be able to achieve something like that, right? To work in this space wherein, to me, sometimes I think the money is not too enough for the kind of pain and suffering they go through and the education as well. But it's so gonna. But if you try to monetize that the illegal way and then put people's lives at risk, then this is where it goes from there. But in the end, he's up against something really difficult, and I'm telling you, I hope he doesn't harm himself. But it is not looking good. And every day, the longer it takes, into this case leading up to trial, the sentencing just increases as well. And one thing, Steve, I'm sure you're possibly aware. You know that Texas now is going after those individual nurses who were part of the scandal, right? So if Texas is going after people who paid for this particular scheme that was organized by this individual, then imagine what the federal government would do to somebody who orchestrated this entire this entire scheme.
Most definitely. And again, this is nothing against anyone or mentioning the name of the late Dr. Cassell, but we're just trying to lay the pattern here in as to provide education and information or whatever not. So we're sympathizing with the family, empathizing, but the realities do not go away because that's how we learn as people, as a society. That's how we learn, and that's how we make adjustments and changes and correct some of the things that we might have overlooked or missed in the past.
Yeah.
And that is why we're having this conversation as we are mentioning, Stanton and so forth. There's nothing even against Stanton. There's nothing against him. It's not personal. It's just the truth of the matter and what we're faced with as a nation, as people, and people who work in healthcare field as well. This is very dangerous. This has changed the life of some people who also aided and abetted this extension, buying the certificates or the nursing degrees. They knew that they were doing wrong, but they knowingly went into it as well. So this is problematic. It's going to affect the lives of people. It's going to affect the lives of children, whether you like it or not, directly and indirectly. So this is problematic. But let's move fast forward a little bit.
Yeah.
There seems to be a pattern also going on in our country. As you will see the topic here today for this conversation, we are in a very risky and dangerous place at this time. The risk and danger of 2023's general elections in Liberia. So we're in a risky zone. But before we get to the risky part of this, there seems to be a pattern here. You listen to the young man before we get to that young man's video. There seemed to be a pattern here. Over a year or two ago, two of the former presidents, their children were killed or murdered, allegedly, or however you want to term it as. These are high-profile people. Children of former presidents or key members of the leadership, they don't just get wiped out like that. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
But again, some people might. Today, it's Gloria Musu-Scott, who has been a former Chief Justice of Liberia, that big position we're talking about. Let me say it that way. Chief Justice people, they're not small people. President Sonara, we saw the children of Todman and Talbot, killed. Nothing came from out of it. It just became the regular songs. People talk about it. We talk about it. And after 2-3 days, because we have a short attention span, we gravitated towards something else. It's like it never happened.
Yeah.
But life's got taken, though. Today we see the attempt on the life of the Chief Justice. There seems to be a pattern here, Duke.
Yeah.
What's going on? But the president told us, if you read the last part of his speech, that the state of the nation was good, it was safe, it was so forth. What is happening?
Yeah, Steve, one of the things, my frustration, and part of the reason why I had to take a step back and think for a second, a lot of times I worried about our people. And the reason why is that because, we are, or the president can do whatever they want. The government can do anything it wants up to a certain point in time. But the government is not stronger than the will of the people, right? And so when the people have had enough, they have the strength, right? Much larger than the government to be able to put an end or stop to what's going on. And so that's my frustration. But, I'm not surprised. And if you follow the trends of Liberia, look, Steve, some of us lived in Liberia, and as young as we were, there are a lot of trauma we lived through, and some of the things that just sound all too familiar, right? Before the Civil War came, we saw this thing wherein Samuel Kayando was actually going after his opponents, and there were a lot of executions in that country, right? During the Charles Taylor time, we saw and heard a lot of things. We heard lists, about potential officials of government are going to be assassinated. I'm a witness of it because my father was on that list, and I just came from CW when the anti-terrorist unit entered the house and turned everything up as young as I was. So I know those things. We know what happened to people like Sam Doki. If you remember the Sam Doki thing there, what? The
Yes.
murder that man, right? You understand me? So that's been patterned, and then we can come to Harry Greaves. We can come to a lot of different instances there. Now we're here, but before we even come to the former Chief Justice, we saw the issue with the auditors and a president on a pulpit making light of the situation and basically saying, "Oh, the people were boyfriend and girlfriend and stuff down it," and this thing happened. But the nonchalant attitude, this kind of don't care attitude of our people is the danger in all of this. Because if we're at the point wherein people are recklessly committing murder in our country, wherein people are getting killed in our country and nobody's taking a stance on it, nobody's saying anything, people pretend or people just walk as if everything is okay. There's something wrong with the psychic of our people that we need to start taking a deeper look at. That young lady is a child, as we'll put it, a young woman, a young adult, whatever it is. I don't know what her age is, but just from the pictures, and we're saying this is somebody who's a young person, right? And her life gets taken away from another senseless act of violence. And then we turn around and say, okay, what is the law doing? How do you run to a group of people or the same law that sits supinely and see things happen and don't take action? How do you run to a government that is openly not in support of its people and creating situations to harm its citizens for protection? These are the dark days, the days of horror in that country. The same thing that triggered this uprising when it came to the Civil War. Some of those same components that created the recipe for disaster in that country is where we're heading. And look, if this is not dealt with, if the Liberian people cannot find a way to stand up for themselves, I'm sorry, but we're gradually slipping into something that all of us will want. I keep referring to people. Go back, Steve. Read the book called The Bottom Billions, and you will understand. Countries like Liberia are still in that particular phase, wherein they're a fragile nation. And it can only take so much of these atrocities and all of these security issues to finally reach its collapse, especially with a country that's economically at its bottom. And then you add all of these security issues there, you're creating a dynamite, this potential volcano eruption that when it finally blows up, is going to spill in the faces of everybody. So the Liberian people can develop this nonchalant attitude like they don't care, but the aftermath, the end result of this will end up backfiring. Everybody will be impacted. Like we had the situation with the 1990 Civil War. I'm not calling for civil war, but I'm just saying though, sometimes our decision to be quiet on issues can negatively impact us, and I think that's where we're heading in this case.
So sometimes I'm confused. And the reason I'm confused is we sometimes blame the government, yet sometimes we put it on the ordinary citizens as well. And I think, in my view, at this stage, the government has proven by all indications that they don't know what they're doing. The government has proven they will not know what they're doing. That's just the truth of the matter. But here is what's concerning to me, and you said it right. This attitude of don't care, or let's just wait for 2023 and we'll vote them out. Let's just wait for this time and we'll kick them out. How many more people should get hurt, should get killed, or should be affected? To the extent wherein we just listen to a young man, every time they talk about some kind of killing, now don't get me wrong, this is not to allege that Jefferson Koji or in any way, shape, or form, I don't speak to things that I don't have any evidence to. I don't do that. until I have evidence to something that I will talk about it or I'll be passionate to speak about it. But it has been consistent. Every time something has to do with some kind of violence, death, or something, Jefferson Koji names always comes up. Always comes up on it, around it, you know. And we are so divided to the point that we can't even make up our mind how we want to hold this government accountable. Now I'm seeing flyers around of some people saying that they want to have a march for Gloria Mususka. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Why did Labrampo did not have a march for the auditors? Why did they have a march for the children of Talbot and Totman who serve our country as presidents? They were human beings as well. I'm a little conflicted.
Yeah.
Are people trying to use this as a political means?
Yeah.
So, you know, these things get mixed up and confused that I'm wondering what we really, really, really want. As a people, what do you say before we move on to the young man that his life was threatened?
You said it well. And this is why people like me, and, you know, I speak my truth. Political affiliations not. At the end of the day, I have my values, right? A friend of ours, Paul Jackson, wrote something brilliant. And he showed empathy for the former Chief Justice daughter and, you know, that horrific incident. But he said, look, at the end of the day, though, the Chief Justice should take a step back and think about how did she contribute to something like this? You remember I said sometimes when we remain, when we're inactive about things, when we remain mute, a nonchalant attitude, right? The aftermath of our silence could sometimes impact us. I said that a few minutes ago. The Chief Justice had everything in her capacity to make sure that we could have built a stronger security sector, a justice system. And all of the nonchalant attitude and all of the blind eye, the intentional bias, right, triggered something that came in the end. Now, it is not right. It doesn't make it right. But I'm just trying to look at it at how can we something this, right? So that's part of that. Now, on the issue of people being selective in what they advocate for is another problem with Liberia. And we see that in our border politics. There's nowhere in that country wherein at this age, wherein with all we experience with the current leadership and all of the things that we've seen before, that people should still be pushing for a system character to serve as president in that country. Selective amnesia, the bias of our people. The reason why we keep running into this. Now you have the situation with the former Chief Justice, politically motivated. Now, yes, we can speak on those things. Yes, we must all stand because it's a horrific thing. And we stand with her, you know, and it is not about anything else. But when we become selective because of our political affiliations, and we're doing things where we did not do it for other people, then that's when people question our value system. Like you said, nobody protested for the dead auditors. Nobody tried to identify with the late Gifty Lama's family. That case is gone down the drain. A young, brilliant woman that could have been one of the vital pieces of building a strong nation wiped away. And nobody said anything. Nobody did, Steve. Today, we're campaigning and talking about protesting. But then, where is this protest going to lead to? Because after a few days, it's going to go away. God forbid, until the next person, and then the next person, and then the next person. This is an issue. And yes, you said, you know, we always blame government responsible. But I am with you. We have to honestly start looking in the mirror at our people. Because if the people were not allowing this, if their actions were not breeding some of these destructive tendencies, then we wouldn't be here today. And that's why I tell people, I say, the people must shoulder the burdens and understand. And I like to use Black America for an instant. We saw everything with the Civil War. But fast forward now, Black Americans now are starting to understand that, look, a lot of the inequality and the economic disparity due to Jim Crow, these things can only be fought if we stand up for ourselves. And how do we stand up? We have to look at it from a constructive and intelligent way and approach these issues that have been bounding us, keeping us behind in terms of society. What they're doing, they're buying land, they're investing in businesses, they're building wealth like never. They're using the resources. Before they were heavily dependent on the Jewish. Now they're learning how to grow their own network and see how best can partner. And you see now what they're doing. They say, well, we can do it in the United States, but if we need to be stronger, we have to create this global push of Black liberation. You see them in Ghana. And you heard Jay-Z talk about investing properties in Ghana. What I'm pointing toward, though, is that people who are sensible, societies, a group of people that are sensible, start looking at things, take a step back and understand, like, maybe we are contributing to some of this, but yes, how we create a shift. And that's where I think we need to evolve in terms of Liberians and our thought processes and the disappointing part. And I hope that some of these things become the trigger point that can drive the type of actions and the results that we need, so we don't continuously engage in these unproductive solutions, right, that turns up to just go down the drain.
I'd agree with you. Just a thought and the fact that Ghana can even be mentioned as an investment spot when Ghana actually has a history about slavery and so forth, but we have the bigger history in Liberia. We have not positioned ourselves to get this kind of attraction that we, in all honesty, Liberia should have been the one attracting, and all of these guys should be pulling in. We are the mother, for, all this Black movement and whatever not. We are the mother. Yeah. Whether you like it or not. It's just that people don't read their history. They don't know what's going on, but we are the mother. We are the people, free slaves, are called our history, settled on our land. And all these big things that we see today, Liberia is hugely connected to it, directly or indirectly. But I want to move fast forward a little bit to this conversation.
Before you go, Steve, I wanted to throw certain things you just said about Ghana.
Please, go ahead.
Why are they doing it from an economic standpoint? Well, they've actually has something valuable for long-term stability, but the Ghanaian authorities saw something in globalization. And COVID taught a lot of nations, right, the new norm forward. And Ghana says, how can we tap into globalization to build our economy and also take the next step? So they've moved beyond mediocrity. And so they started borrowing from what the U.S. was doing. They started using arts to sell Ghana more. You see, they started bringing musicians and artists, movie stars from Hollywood to brand. And the more the people came in, they started crafting policies and stuff to make it attractive to them. So now, if you're Black and African American and stuff, you can go and get land in Ghana and stuff. So they created economic incentives to attract, in addition to the stability they had and the economic progress they made, the leadership that was actually pro, right? Pro globalization. And that's why you see the surge. And mind you, they're taking off. Unlike Liberia, wherein we're still trying to figure out how to build toilet in communities in the city for people to use. So all of those things is wild, and hopefully another time we'll get into that aspect of it.
But even on a bigger picture, based on what you said, the Ghanaians, they are open to the fellow diasporans coming down. You don't hear them calling them Decembrists. They open the doors. They don't feel threatened by these people. They don't exploit the people when the people get there. Mm-hmm. They don't. Even if a person can stay long in America, they will rather exploit you, the Liberian, who they know that you don't have a Ghanaian accent, than a Ghanaian who stayed in America. They don't do that. They don't discriminate against them. They don't see them. As a matter of fact, they're able to vote in the elections.
Yes.
They're able to make their voices heard. But not only that, on a bigger picture, on a bigger note, one of the big things that the Ghanaians have done, these things that you see happening today, they didn't just come. The grounds were laid during Gerald Rowland time. Yes. These guys ensured that issues like corruption and other things, they tackled them. They got serious. They talk on the issues. Yep. Even if you were the president or whoever you are, they will go after you. Yep. They made sure they stood up for what is right. So the foundation was laid, so it made it easier. And then not only that, you talked about globalization. What they've done so far as a nation, what they've done. They brought in serious-minded president that has a global connection, that is well respected, that is well known. They didn't say because we know what the other guy that he ran against before, and the guy is popular, and so Nana Addo need to come. What in Nana Addo not be here before? They were not thinking. They were not the mindset. Again, they were thinking about globalization because you will have to get certain people. The other time when President John we are here, and they're having a TV, they're having a TV room. They're having a TV room watching TV. One and I they were discussing billions of investments.
Investments, yeah.
When we say this thing, they say we hate the president, we hate the government, we hate this one. It is time that we rise up and we move past these petty things. Oh, I know the person, you know the person. The word is connecting. Nobody's going to invest in your the person popular or the person. Nobody's going to invest in that country because they want people that they can trust. They want serious-minded people.
Yeah.
So I want to move fast forward because, like you said, we'll have another time to talk about some of these things and the impact. But here is another question. This young man, we listen to him, that his life is threatened by the same guy allegedly who committed or perpetrated, who's the perpetrator of the crime against Gloria Musu Scott. He's alleging that this guy threatened him on Facebook. And so that's to our viewers and our listeners, that's very scary for you, for me, the ordinary people, you know, that this guy is a reporter, so forth, but his life is being threatened. What do you say? Well, and this is not the first person that said that life has been threatened. Prince Johnson said it. Charlene Bronski is alarming that her life is threatened as well. Yeah. Other people are alarming these things.
Yeah. And you see, especially going to election, these things cannot be something that's just made up, right? And it has to be part of a larger plan to suppress people, to intimidate people, right? And to actually act on it, because you don't take those things lightly. There's a series of major security issues in our country. And I think that, you know, it is also the responsibility, since our people can take charge of our international partners, the ECOWAS, the United States. And I hope to see the outcry or hear the outcry of people on social media and in these media spaces of some of the things that's happening in the country. Steve, you remember one time ago, there was some guy that was actually taken out of prison or so and started serving in the security apparatus within government.
Yeah.
It's not the first time that we've heard the government has actually used ex-combatants and created separate units for them to control, right? We saw that, was it during the protest when they put these guys, ex-combatants out that was threatening people to, you know, from getting out in the street. So there's a history of when it comes to relationships between the current government or elements within the government and people who have had, right, a checkered past when it comes to violence, when it comes to engaging in some of these things, you know, that's destabilized the country. So, you know, I would just caution that young man to, you know, beef up security, be very mindful, because as it stands, the government does not care about individual citizens. But I'll tell you this, Steve, you know, look, monkey or baboon know what tree to clean behind on. Nobody's going to intimidate people or think they are going after people and stuff that's going to scare people from showing up and doing things. You're on your own, because at the end of the day, no, we will meet somewhere. And if you think that you can threaten people's life, you're going to get what's coming your way. That's all I got to say. But we have to take these issues seriously. Civil society organizations, human rights organizations, those who have some sort of connections in that area, they need to start raising these issues to our international partners and letting them know the documented evidences of complaints. And listening, before the Gloria Musu Scott thing happened, she did acknowledge that, you know, people went to her house with the intention of harming her. And nobody took any actions to protect her, right? Nobody did anything to protect her, to actually say, you know what, this woman is saying something, we need to make sure that we, you know, take it with some level of seriousness and try to either help her or actually protect her. And now we see the outcome. So we can't take those things lightly. And it's up to people like you who have the presence in the media and other people to continue to flag this thing. And if you ask me, instead of going to, you know, only protest on behalf of Gloria Musu Scott, it needs to be a nationwide effort reaching to international partners and letting them know that there's a security issue here, and we believe that they need to step in and see how best we can provide some level of help for the ordinary citizens.
But that's an important point, providing some level of security for the ordinary citizens, because if people who are close to power of authority or had power before or 30 or whatever it is cannot even feel secured, then we have a bigger problem on our hands. For the common people who can't even afford, a place to live, how are they going to take care of themselves and take care of their own security or whatever? But when you ask our president, he comes up, and these are some of the things that we say passionately. People think we hate people. The president speaks immaturely, irresponsibly, and recklessly, and says to the people that you should go get your own CCTV cam. This is not a joking matter.
Yeah.
They're not something that we're joking with. They're not boys talk.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, gentlemen, let's go over Jew, or gentlemen, let's go to the club, or gentlemen, let's go to the party, or what. They're not joking thing. That people like you don't come and make, even if that what you are thinking, that, do you know how many things we can think in our heads on a daily basis we don't say out? If we're saying it out there, we'll have some serious problems.
Yeah.
So even if the president talked that way, you don't make those kind of statements.
Well, but he said on the pulpit, he insulted the deceased, the gifted Lama, said they were in some promiscuous activity. See, that's a sad state.
That was very dishonoring. But there are two major things that's going on. Two major things are going on that I believe to some extent there seem to be some distractions deliberately from the CDC and other people to distract the word and the public from it. But the prerequisites have been laid down to create problems in the country in terms of the voting. The first one I wanted to zoom in on briefly here is the census.
Yeah.
That is a problem.
Yeah.
The change we've seen in the census, the growth we've seen, do not add up. They don't make any sense in any way, shape, or form. You can't tell me people you river says. Automatically, the numbers jump up the group. They have a growth of 80% or whatever it is. What in the guy river says? To attract all the men there. Because the growth, either people come there, or people have children. There is no other way. So, first of all, the roads are bad. Even if you're hardcore, you get someone that's doing roads, when you're talking about the roads, you have people you worry. You don't want to go there. You are in a position something in Monrovia, then to position something in roads where there's no good road. Or you can take the main road straight from Monrovia to go to Nima County or Bon County, where the road at least is clear and is well paved. So I don't understand how these people in a small continent that we know for a fact, years over years, they've not grown. As a matter of fact, people are gravitating towards the capital city. And you are telling me, even the younger people, everybody won't go to the town where they can hustle. Because they will have some kind of God power, some kind of God man, or they will be doing some kind of thing to get them going, or they will sell some kind of, how many people, how do you transport businesses in Riverside? So how do we arrive at these big numbers? And I think it's a problem too. What do you say before we get to the money part?
Steve, I'm loving this, man. I said this. Look, one of the things that I like about you is that you take your time and you ask the right questions. And I like when people, are just bright and just, ready to go on issues, right? Look, you also said that, it's disturbing with the census. You know what's even disturbing is the second part that I wrote on this card. We knew that the government would try to be manipulative when it comes to the general election. I think you saw with the electronic system that was being pushed by our international partner, and the line say, "Oh, we'll use it." Then the international partner can say, "No, it's working. It should be able to work." So there was some sort of confusion. What I want your listening audience to pay attention to, and look, regardless if you love my stance or you hate my stance or everything, I want you to keep an open mind and be objective. And I will be the first to tell you, when I say stuff at times, listening to it, because there's something in that thing that I say that eventually is going to happen. What we should be focused on, though, is what happened that day when the numbers for the census were released. When we woke up that morning, we heard about paternity test.
Yes.
Okay. And the news was mainly pushed, came from Moali, and it looks like the PR officer Costa blew it up, and then everybody started running after that part. What I want you and everybody in the audience to think for a second, if we are up against the government and we know there's a crucial election coming up,
Right.
and we know that the census that we've been critical of is one of the key components of that election, why would it be smart on the day of the release of the census for somebody to write a story about a paternity test on social media? I'm going to
Yeah.
pause. Why? Strategic. The government has figured out that those two individuals are a part of their scheme. And I've said, I haven't had it before. I told a lot of people on social media months ago last year, when Costa had a conversation with Nathaniel McGill on WhatsApp. How would I know that? And then suddenly it started coming at people something. How would I know that? How would I know that this man is still on the payroll of the CDC administration? How would I know that? How would I know about the Chucky Taylor stuff and conversation hell? How would I know that? We're not stupid. All of us connected. The government figured that the censor was going to create a buzz. It was going to be released. And what they told them is that, the Liberian people and stuff, let's put a distraction story out at the same time and take the people from it. What does that follow? It follows everything you see from them. That's the playbook. Let's go back to the CPP stuff. Every time communists come and have a major press conference, they jump and bring a distraction to kill it because they don't want people listening to what he was saying. You remember, Steve? This is part of the playbook. So they use something that the new people are going to go after to kill this public, reaction to a censor story. This is what should be troubling to a lot of our people in the opposition. That we have people who says that the faces of the opposition, they're trying to help you, that's actually aiding this government.
Yes.
And the government feels comfortable doing these things because they know that they have these people in the back pocket who will run PR for them. Costa doesn't just go and show up in Liberia to go visit and on a trip if there was not something deeper that gave him some kind of protection. Are something wrong with y'all? Look at Akara's Grace response after Mo Ali wrote that stuff. And think for a second. CDC does not find civility in anything. They milk it and they destroy it. Look at Akara's Grace response. The clues were there. But Steve, this is troubling. And I hope that something can be done from our international partners and even some members of the opposition when it comes to election integrity. Because we're witnessing clear manipulations, an intentional attempt and strategies put forth by the government to continue to be deceptive, using people within the opposition to orchestrate distraction and cause more problems. We saw it within the CPP. They did that, they destroyed everything and went to court and everything. That was all part of the strategies as well. So how do we actually something? There needs to be more pressure. There needs to be more conversations with international partners forcing the government heads. And yes, in addition to that, there will have to be a massive amount of resources spent on monitoring and minding the polling stations in key areas because that's what it's going to boil down to. And that's why it is important for us to go after somebody who will have the resources to make sure that we have those mechanisms in place as well. But that's some of the issues, Steve. But the most essential aspect of this is that why is the government so confident and comfortable in doing this? Because they have people in the opposition, like the Mo Ali and the Costa and the likes, that's actually aiding this government in the clear destruction and manipulation of the Liberian people. They don't care because they'll get their few dollars. They will go behind the scenes and shake their hands, but they'll continue to use the sufferings, the plight of the people to get the evil agenda across.
Okay, wonderful. Well, many people don't pay attention to some of these things, when it is said, because they carry easily in the moment. But again, the timing of the Mo Ali's paternity test, which I've heard a lot of people talk about, it doesn't make any sense. Let me just put it that way. First of all, That in Liberia, you do 2 DNA tests, but you don't trust the system. You don't come in America and do 2 DNA tests. You know, the accuracy here is much better and everything is clear. But Duke, I want to give you some time for the next maybe 10 minutes. Maybe you can take this time to expand on this issue of the budget, and I will highlight you. So it's just you. I'm in the back end. I'm listening to you. But the second thing that we have problem with is the budget. What is your take? What is happening? And what should we expect? Because these things are not mutually exclusive if you look at them, the census and the budget. These guys need money in order to facilitate. The part A is the census, part B is the money part of it. But all of this has come in the midst of these huge distractions from so-called members of the opposition that should rather be focused on these issues that would enhance their ability to become the next government. They are undermining it directly and indirectly in the eyes of their own people, and some people are still falling for these things. What do you say?
Steve, let me tell you this. I would want us to honestly create a time to go through the line items of the budget. But, you know, on the surface, we have said this for a long time. There's nothing when it comes to numbers with CDC or the current government that I respect. There is nothing that comes with anything in terms of the budget in Liberia that I would say and take with face value from the government. The truth here is that we've known for months that all they're doing is to make sure that they have money to use for campaign purpose. The dangers of that is that the next government that takes over is going to be in a serious predicament. Majority of our country's budget is being funded by not only international partners through debt. When you're borrowing, when you're acquiring debt, you're passing that on to not only the next administration, but the next generation and the next group of people that should be a focal point of the economy. These monies are not really going into the right areas. What is actually allocated for education? What is allocated for agriculture? What is allocated, to those essential social components of our government and our society that are supposed to cater to those issues of gender inequality and the rape culture that we're seeing in the country? What? But all of those sectors that they've inflicted are only geared towards making sure that they are creating loopholes to take money and bribe people like the Costa and the Mo Ali and other people in the name of winning a general election. The government hasn't been really serious when it comes to not only our budget, when it comes to the economy of Liberia. There hasn't been a massive or major shift in terms of growth. Let's look at jobs, for instance. Government, after all these years, the first term of the Weah administration is still the largest employer in that country. That means we have more unemployed people. Actually, there are more unemployed young people now than there were in 2017. You got a budget that's actually paying salaries to individuals and people who don't even deserve that amount. Look at the money that's actually going to people like the Speaker of the House. Look at the money that's actually going to things that are not even essential. You have resources poured into the office of the First Lady, the upkeep of the President, stipends thrown at different sectors, when those monies could be redirected to areas that can actually create some level of economic shift. But in all of this, Steve, as I stated, the Liberian people must understand their value. What are those lawmakers doing? What exactly are those lawmakers doing? You have lawmakers in Liberia that's making more money than the people who are funding your national budget from other countries. That's ridiculous. What bills are they passing to impact the lives of the Liberian people? I really want to know how many bills that have been passed that are actually addressing the issue of unemployment in that country. How many bills that have been passed that's actually tackling the issue of poor health and education in that country? How many bills have been passed that's tackling the issue of national security? Besides pouring money into the EPS and other presidential security apparatuses for their own selfish agenda. But the plea must go to the Liberian people. Because if the Liberian people don't settle for this and don't sit every time and allow these people to have the way, the government will not blatantly disrespect them. There is a major issue of dishonesty when it comes to that budget. And Steve, I would want us to go line items, on another show for us to really dig deeper so we can be able to highlight some of those flaws and the deception and create visuals for the people to take a look at. But the budget as it is follows a pattern of dishonesty, of deception that we've actually been highlighting for a long time. For a long time. There is nothing that's actually going to key sectors that's going to help the Liberian people. Absolutely nothing. Because those are the essential aspect of everything when you're looking at how government spending your money. Basically, it's about how government using your money to be able to pour into you. And when you take a look at it, and almost 80% of it is actually going back in salaries, or even more than 80%, into paying people who are doing nothing. Come on now. Come on. But our legislative body has been a disgrace. Along with even some members of the opposition, the likes of Darius Dale on them, all of them, because they're receiving those pays. They're collecting money. They're doing the same things. They're aiding the government when it comes to certain aspect of things, and that's actually destroying or further destroying the Liberian people. This is a key issue. This is a pivotal issue, Steve, that I think that, we need to speak mostly towards our people to understand that these things cannot happen. Look, you can't be in a country wherein the people are still buying syringes when they go to a hospital. And then you tell me that more money will go to the legislative branch and government security than being poured into healthcare. You can tell me that more money will go into paying the salaries of government officials than going into actually creating economic tangibles that will create jobs and equality for young people in that country, in the private sector. So we've killed, for the past 6 years, they've killed an entire private sector, no job growth. The entire economic plan that they said they created, they cannot tell you where in one job was actually created that's employing people. So this is a major issue, and I want us to go line item. Let's set up a time and go through the entire budget in different areas and bring up visuals and slides so that people can see and break it down for the ordinary people. But you said it, the census and the budget are exploits. There are manipulation tools to use for their advantage going to a general election. The census, regulation, budget, find money to pour into pushing and bribing people who can aid their efforts of further winning an election in Liberia. That's what it's going to. This is election year. They want to use that to pump a lot of money and resources into it. That's why you see people like us out there will continue to get paid from the government. That's where all these money is coming from. Okay.
Most definitely do. I'd have to agree with you. Shockingly, one of the supporters of President George Weah, something is just before we close up here, something is inherently wrong with us as human beings. Imagine a supporter of George Weah is celebrating Peter Obi. What sense does that make?
Yeah.
You support George Weah, you say you want into that second term, but you are supporting Peter Obi.
Yeah, Obi.
How do you come to terms with those two things? Also, good thing. You like good thing. You want good thing. But you support something that is not good.
That's not,
So which one is which? How do I consider, that kind of person? But the third thing that the Weah-led government, like you said, we have time to
please,
you have time to bring you back so that we can talk about the budget line by line. Is the third thing that I just want to throw in here is, and they've succeeded. The Supreme Court is already set. Should there be any eventuality, it's already set in a way that it will rule in favor of the government.
Yeah.
So You can say all you want about the CDC-led government, and you can think that something is wrong with them, but you must give them a credit that from a criminal mindset, they're very good.
Yeah.
They're ahead of their game. Let's be very honest. They are. They have laid down all the paths to win the next election. Even when, because at the end of the day, they'll say the Supreme Court is the highest law of the land, whatever it is. When you carry to the Supreme Court, guess what happened? See, and then you and the rest of the team, just the cabal, and all these people will fall in line with George Weah.
But Steve, you're only talking about how smart they've actually, taken over the Supreme Court. Look at the opposition bloc. How smart they've been to look at some of those people, some of your, not you, but some of our people who are listening, put out here. That if there's one thing a seditian, a close person when Erica told me, said, look, he said, let me tell you, you've been out of Liberia and stuff, jokingly. He said, let me tell you about Liberian politics. There are a lot of people that have a lot of hungry bellies to feed. A lot of these guys are cash thirsty. They don't know how to work to earn an honest living. And so they rely on these bad deals to keep afloat. And this person is a top person, right? And he said that alone is an advantage. Because what they've done, what George Weah and his people have been smart about, is to really come in the depths of the opposition and take over the people like Costa and the Mo Ali and actually use them in a way wherein they still cater to the sentiments of people who are loyal to them, but they smartly, right, destroy the fabric of the opposition. And then what you have our people doing, the opposition are serious. It's a government thing. That's what they want them to do. And they intentionally continue to push the chaos and stroke everything. And our people buy into it. That's what I said, and I continue to say. If you notice my stance now, I'm not 100% attacking the government. I'm merely shifting responsibility on our people for an education purpose. And I'm actually highlighting where they could actually start thinking a little different, critical thinking. And if you looked at everything, Steve, it's that easy. It's not that difficult. The government took over the Supreme Court. The government's got the security apparatus. They got the EPS wearing partisan T-shirts and stuff and what have you. The chief of staff now is suddenly pro-government message, right? Then you look at it now, you see people in the opposition, like the likes of Costa and everything, becoming PR officers for the government Liberia. What does that tell you? And you know what? They will react after the SKTV conversation. Trust me. All right. So these are the things that we have to, look at and see how we can speak against. But something's actually building up here. Hopefully, our people can be smarter than that. And it will boil down to, at the end of the day, the Weah administration can do all they want to do. But it boils down to how those parties man the polling station. And so a lot of resources going to have to be spent in protecting the votes. A lot of meetings will have to be held with our international partners. There needs to be additional pressure placed on the government as well. And we have to make sure that we're rallying our people to turn up in a massive number to be able to put that. And don't vote because you think that you owe loyalty to the politician or you think somebody's popular. It has to be based upon voting for the right things. And maybe, hopefully, that's another conversation we can have, Steve, to be able to further enlighten them. Steve, you're on mute. I can't hear you, bro.
I say most definitely, Duke. It was a good 1 hour and change conversation here with you. We will definitely make time to bring you back at some point so that we can continue from where we stopped. But yes, those who want to believe it and think that this is a political thing and say, you're against the person or that's your business. It's not important. At this end, you decide to settle for what you want to settle for.
Yeah.
You are not changing your ways. You are not changing your mind. You're not even open to the facts. So that's cool. To each his own. You make your decision. You'll be respected for your decision. History will judge us all at the end of the day. But we are not also going to sit on the touchline and be made fool of when we know the truth. That's not how it works in the real world. In the real world, when you know the truth, when you know better, you speak better, you act better, you behave better. But I want to sit around for this distraction and not point it out and stick it. So far, we've had some of these conversations, alerted some of you, brought the facts up to you. You're stuck in your ways, you're stuck in your mind, because for you, is if this is not this, then it can be. Let's burn the house down. Or if you it's funny how, and right after this, I'll be asking for your closing. Took, it's funny how people write posts, and I see some people saying, Wema Pele wrote a post, and Peter Obi supporters were there and they were celebrating or whatever, Pete Obi. And I see someone who know the truth, supports other actors only because of the loyalty to a certain person, come and comment on that the scene changed, something in the light of the scene changed, the warning, like, bro, whatever it is. And I shook my head. I said, how hypocritical can you be? You support somebody you don't believe in only because of your proximity to another person. Who told you the issue of selecting who to lead you is about proximity, or you got to know the person, or you got to be friends? Who told you that's how it works? Who told you that you elect people because you're from the same tribe, or because your godpa will benefit, your boyfriend will benefit? Who told you that is how it works? People make these decisions, they're hardcore decisions in electing officials, because they believe that this person would impact the lives of many people or people at large, not just you, your family member, whatever it is. They can go and even if they're no longer in existence, they will sit down and their choice and their decision would be appreciated by the next generation. That's what people do in terms of election.
Yeah.
They don't do it for right now in the moment, or because the person popular, or because the person got new recognition. It has never paid. It would never pay. It will never pay. It has never paid. And so you want to vote for who you want to vote for based on new recognition, or we should be discussing, looking at people who are able to deliver. We talked about globalization. It's interesting how the people who you support come to the country and you are struggling to even raise money. When we say that you get vexed, you have no connections. Who told you connections will come when they become president? Who told you that how it works? Who told you that? If that was the case, then President George Weah would have brought jobs to Liberia. If that was the case. But Duke, let's have your partner comment so that we can close for the day.
Yeah, Steve, thanks, man. It's always a pleasure, chopping it up with you, like we say in our little American talk here and stuff. And it's always good when we have the opportunity to speak to our people, man. That's what we can do, our collective voices. I tell people all the time, my stance when it comes to Liberia is not because I need a job in Liberia. I have no intentions. I think what I'm focused on is building myself to be able to do what I can do in my capacity. Now, if there's a need where we can, make ourselves available to be able to help in our country, in other capacity, we can do that as well. So void of wanting to have the right person to guide and lead our people and create this balanced economy for all of us, we want to make sure that everybody's part of that process and we're speaking our truth. But in closing, Steve, I know a lot of things we touched on here. I would just like to call on people to be objective in, things. One of the things I've learned over the past couple of months is that, don't put your neck on the line for people, right? Try to get all the facts for yourself and make an informed decision, because at the end of the day, when you really get to the bottom of it, you will see that some of these people, they have their own issues as well. But from, a Liberia standpoint, we're moving into a crucial election. And we cannot follow the patterns of voting or supporting people because of popularity. Because if we think that everything is going wrong under the Weah's administration and Liberia is heading in the wrong direction, then logic should tell us that 99.9% of the time, when we go to polling stations and we elect leaders based upon popularity, we come back after 2-3 months to complain that that person is not doing what they need to do to change the country. That's the fact. Look it up yourself. 99.9% of the time, whenever we vote a person based upon popularity, it does not quantify in terms of the economics for us, meaning that it doesn't add any value and we run back into the same thing. So I think the trend of thought going forward for the next election should be about how can we put ourselves ahead now? How can we make the right decision to elect somebody that understands how to fix this economy, how to build the private sector, and how to give all of us this kind of balance when it comes to making sure that all of us are part of the growth and development of the country. So, Steve, again, thank you. And I saw you guys having a big interview tomorrow. So, yeah, hopefully you can do a debrief after that interview and stuff. It'll be a great opportunity to be able to break down some of those things and see how best we can add some type of a light to that conversation. I see you on mute, Steve.
Most definitely, tomorrow we have Mr. Alexander B. Cummings as our guest for us to talk about lots of different national trending issues. So we'll look forward to the conversation tomorrow. We'd like to say thanks to you. Again, we'll definitely have you back on at some point so that we can talk in depth about some of these things, and we can look at it from the way we looked at it today, from a national standpoint, and we can do what we need to do to get the right thing going here for our people, and they can make the right choice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my brother.
God bless, and let's have a good weekend, everyone. Stay out of trouble. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
I'm not sure why this is not coming up.
You don't even know my story.
I am unable to get to the music here.